Hello and welcome to Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Yeah, it's it's Saturday of Labor Day weekend, and I am sitting here looking at a bunch of stuff that I'm gonna tell you about. Yeah, it's been a productive week. It was also the first week of school. I work, for those of you who are new, or maybe I don't talk about it very much. I work at a university. I work at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, so UMBC, which is a University of Maryland school, much smaller than the University of Maryland in College Park. But it is like, I don't know, I think it's about the size of the University of Vermont, but it's more of a commuter school. It's in Catonsville, Maryland, which is just outside of Baltimore, towards DC. And I work in student sort of academic affairs. My official title is student success coach / advisor. So I'm an advisor, but mostly I work with students kind of one-on-one to like succeed. Obviously. And I work with students who are in like the STEM kind of area. So mostly I work with biology majors. Because college science classes can be really hard if you are used to high school, and just it's really fast paced, and it's great. But I love UMBC. It's a great school. It's really, really supportive of its community and its students, and it's like a wonderful place. Everybody is nice to each other. It's one of those kinds of places. So I really like it. But it was the first week of school, and we started classes on Wednesday. Freshmen moved in, or first years. I think we call them first years now. I went to undergrad in Canada, so we always said first year. They moved in last weekend, and then so they were on campus Monday and Tuesday as well, and then they started their classes on Wednesday. I started teaching my class on Thursday. I teach like a first year success skills, like 2-credit class, which is really fun. It's almost as fun as teaching music history, which is what I did when I was a graduate student. I feel like my meme game is like not quite as strong with freshman success skills, but it's still there. Yeah, so yeah, that's what I do for my day job, for those of you who don't know. But it's Saturday morning, and I usually go to park run on Saturday mornings, which is some of you probably know what park run is. Park run is just like you go to the park near you, and you run a 5K with the people in your community. It's all over the world. It's started in the UK, and there are a lot in this area, like the DC, Maryland area. So usually Nitin and I go to park run on Saturdays. But he is working at a wedding this weekend. He works at a wedding like planning company, just as like that's not his main job. He's an engineer. That's just like something he does for fun on the weekends, because he's very good at that kind of thing, and he really likes being around people. And so it's Saturday morning, and I'm not going for a run because I had a crazy week, and I'm drinking a kale smoothie, which, to be fair, I do every morning. Usually you can't see how much kale is in it, like usually, especially if actually all the time. I almost never drink it in the smoothie cup. I almost always like decant it into a cup with a lid and a straw, like a to-go cup. But this means fewer dishes, so I'm just doing this today. The older I get, the more I feel like I need to actually make sure I eat enough fruits and vegetables to like stay awake throughout the day, and like alert. And this is a really easy way to get 3 servings of fruits and vegetables in, like right there at the beginning of the day, plus yogurt, so there's protein in it. It's not just kale, it's like kale, tropical fruit from Costco, orange juice, and full-fat Greek yogurt. You should always eat full-fat yogurt because it's way better for your microbiome. That's a fun fact. My like best childhood friend Lauren, she has an MD PhD, and her PhD was in stomach bacteria research, and so I know this from a scientist. You should eat full-fat yogurt. You should not eat non-fat yogurt or low-fat yogurt if you can avoid it, because it's actually not very good for you. Okay, let's talk about some relevant stuff. It's been like 5 minutes, and I've just been sitting here talking about crap to the camera. I'm not wearing knitwear today. It's actually not hot yet. It's gonna be really warm later today and like this week. It's actually been really nice the last few days. Like in the mornings, it's been like 60, which is so nice. For those of you who live in Celsius territory, that's like 15, 16 degrees. so much nicer than like the usual million degrees it usually is during the day. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to like this coming week being in the 90s. Oops, I forgot to turn off Do Not Disturb. And people are gonna send me notifications, but that's fine. Yeah, so it's not so hot, but I'm not wearing knitwear. I just didn't feel like it this morning. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is that the Woolly Thistle released a colorwork course that I mostly taught about how to do color work. It's just like an introduction to color work. And this is the example hat that I knitted. This is literally the hat. Well, I ripped it back to make it longer, but this is the exact hat that I knitted on the course. You can see it here now before I send it off to the Woolly Thistle. This is the Flowers of Fort Rose hat designed by Karine Tomlinson, who owns the Woolly Thistle. You can get this pattern and the course from the Woolly Thistle. You also get a pattern for mittens. So I want to talk about the mittens. I'm going to put this on. If I can find the jog. That's the jog. I am going to knit another one of these. I really, really like it. I knitted this below gauge a little bit because I wanted it to fit really snugly, which meant that I needed to add some more length. That's fine. The pattern actually gives you instructions on how to add more length if it's not long enough. And then there's also a pair of mittens. And so this is a fun lesson on why you should check your gauge with the recommended needle sizes in a pattern, because you might knit drastically differently from somebody else. So I knitted a mitten, one of the Flowers of Fort Rose mittens for the course, and it's here. And I don't know if you can tell, this is like too small for my hand. I don't even know if I can get my hand in it. So, but it said, like I didn't check my gauge. I just knitted, but I looked at the number of stitches, like the stitch count, and I thought, that's not gonna fit me. That's gonna be too small. I'm gonna go up a needle size. So I went up a needle size and it's still quite small. And then I checked the gauge after I finished it and it was too small. Like this is 36 stitches over 4 inches, not 32. So I was right in thinking when I saw like the numbers, oh, that's gonna be too small. I was right, this is too small. But I am knitting a sample that does fit, that like ideally I need gauge. So I went up a needle size. This I knitted on a US 2, went up to a US 3, and actually I'll hold them up together. Wow, that's one needle size difference. This fits my hand. The thumb's not done yet, but this fits like a normal mitten. Probably could have gone down for the cuff to make that hug my wrist a little bit better, but that's okay. We live and we learn. There's always something that we wish were different about our projects. So you can see they match. Woo! The mitten and the hat match. You can get sets of this at the Woolly Thistle as well as the course and the pattern. This is knitted in Rama Lamel garn, which is a lot like fennel garn, but it's a little thinner. It's very comparable in grist and twist and like yarn balance, etc., like how it's spun, woolen spun, etc., to Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight, which is a fan favorite. But you get more, you get twice as much in the ball of Rama Lamel garn, excuse me. And it's a little bit more economical. So if you find that JNS, buying too many colors of JNS might break the bank, this is a great alternative. So all this to say, you can use my affiliate link for the Woolly Thistle, which will be somewhere up there, to get this course. And if you use it, then I get a little bit back, which is really nice. And you get to watch me doing the course. You can use my affiliate link to get anything from the Woolly Thistle, and please do. And all of the links to specific things will be in the show notes, but I'll link the course, I'll link my affiliate link, I'll link Rama Lamel garn. They've got kits for this in a variety of colors that you can get, or you can make your own set. So we are 95% sure that you can get a hat and mittens out of one ball of the background color. You would not run out of any of the foreground colors because you don't use them enough to run out. But yeah, I'm working on this. Like I'm knitting a second mitten and then I'm gonna knit another hat to see if I can get a full set out of one ball of the background color. So stay tuned, but almost definitely you can. And these are you will see these on the Woolly Thistle Shopcast. If you don't watch the Shopcast, you should. Most people find me through the Woolly Thistle, but sometimes people find the Woolly Thistle through me, as I've learned from some viewers. So check them out. They're an online retailer based in New Hampshire. And Corrine, the owner, she specializes in bringing in yarns from the UK and Europe and all over the world, like importing yarns. They basically take care of the international shipping, so you don't have to. It's really convenient, let me tell you. I just ordered from the Woolly Thistle some cones of Frangipani Guernsey yarn, which is a yarn that's 5-ply Guernsey yarns made in Cornwall, I think. It's definitely like the company that makes it is definitely based in Cornwall, which is in England, for those of you who don't know. And so I am knitting, I'm gonna, like, one of my big fall projects is gonna be to knit a Guernsey jersey, whatever you wanna call it, for Mark, who is my like first church music teacher. He was my choir director when I was a kid at the Cathedral in Burlington. And he is like the most important music mentor I've ever had. So Mark is, well, he lives in Burlington. Like, the world in Burlington is so small. Like, Mark he was my organ teacher, but both of his stepdaughters used to babysit me, and one of them lives in Baltimore, and like the other one went to the University of Toronto, which is also where I went, and like lived there for a long time. Yeah. So Mark is still a very important like church music mentor for me. It's really fun now that like I'm a grown up and I have sung in all these churches, and we get to like, whenever I see him, we get to just like talk about all these people that we both know and be like, oh, have you heard about what's going on there? Have you heard about what's going on there? He's the best. He was like almost like a third parent to me. So anyway, Mark, he was like, I told him I would make him a sweater, like, I don't know, this was like a year ago, and I am busy, and like it's in my mind, like, I gotta make a sweater for Mark at some point, like I gotta talk to him about that and see what he wants. But Mark is luckily a more assertive person than I am, and he was texting me the day, he was like, have you ever made a Guernsey? And I was like, yeah, I made a Guernsey sort of for my mom once. Do you want a Guernsey? And he had sent me pictures of the Gladys, is her name Gladys Thompson, the woman who wrote, I call it the Guernsey Bible, a book about Guernsey patterns and stuff. I have the book, I just don't have it with me right here. And he just like sent me some pictures of it. Like, have you ever made a Guernsey? And just with these pictures, and I was like, yeah. Do you want a Guernsey? And he was like, yes. And I was like, great. I have been wanting to knit a Guernsey with this like special yarn from Cornwall. And he was like, great, I'll send it to you. Or he was like, let me Venmo you for it. And I was like, great, okay, fine. And so like, I'm gonna knit this, like, I mean, he had like ideas for the patterns that he liked in the book. So I'm gonna probably mash them up to create something kind of like, well, bespoke. I mean, any fisherman's sweater should be bespoke. It should be knitted for like the person who, it's like, obviously you have to custom fit them, but like, it's kind of like Fair Isle. Like you don't use a pattern, you use like measurements and a gauge swatch to be like, okay, I'm gonna cast on this many. I wanna knit these patterns into it, like the texture patterns, and they mean stuff like, there's like the like rhombus thing, which is like the eye of God. And then there's like trees and anchors and cables and all sorts of stuff. And so you design it like, I think you're supposed to design each one individually. Like, that's kind of the idea. Obviously today's patterns, and this is something I talk about a lot with Fair Isle too. Today's patterns, like people and knitters don't necessarily like have that kind of deep knitting knowledge because they're used to following patterns, and it's like, you know, really specific patterns with everything laid out. Like Brooklyn Tweed's patterns are 30 pages long sometimes, because they're super detailed. So, and I think that's because like back in the, you know, in these communities when these things were being done, like knitting professionally was much more of a thing that like women did, and especially where there were like, called truck industries? What are they called? Something industries, where like women would knit and someone would get the stuff and then like distribute it, which was not great for the women. Like they didn't get paid very much. But like Selbu Mittens was like part of one of these industries, and Fair Isle was part of one of these industries. But like this was a place where like a lot of women, that was what they did. Like all they did was, you know, domestic labor and a ton of knitting. And so they knew what they were doing, like in a way that today's modern knitters who are hobby knitters don't really. And so that's pretty much the reason why this, like, we need really strong, strict patterns. But like one of the things that I've been trying to do as a knitter is to kind of like think, okay, so I have knitted all this stuff. I've used a lot of patterns, all that stuff. But like the more I knit, the more I understand how a piece of clothing is constructed, so that I don't need to follow a very specific pattern. It's just kind of, and like, you know, you can use a Guernsey book like this and like look at a pattern that's knitted for stitch counts and, you know, instructions if you want, and then just kind of pop your own stuff on it, which is what I started doing with Fair Isle sweaters when I started designing my own. So, like, I felt it was really exciting when I did my set a stall cardigan, because that was the first time I didn't look at a single thing to design that thing other than the actual charts. I did not look at any pattern for reference. I just knew, okay, this is how many I want. I've done this before. I understand how this is constructed. I know what to do for the steeks. I know what to do for the neckline, all that kind of thing. And I did it without any kind of instructions that were written. I just used charts. So it took me a long time to get there. And I have a lot deeper appreciation for like women who were, and maybe men in some places, who are part of these industries, and how much they like had to know and how much they had to work to gain this knowledge. And of course, a lot of it was probably like passed down, you know, through families and things like that. But it was like, you know, it's pretty cool. So anyway, I'm going to make a Guernsey for Mark using basically chart books, ideally, and measurements and a gauge swatch with frangipani yarn, which I haven't worked with, so I'm very excited. And I got 2 cones with the idea that probably I will not use very much of the second cone, and then I'll make probably a sweater for myself, which will be nice. Hopefully, because it's a 500 gram cone of yarn you can make. And I'll probably use like 600 grams total, so I have like 400 grams left for the sweater for me. Anyway, I'm excited. So, all that being said, shop at the Woolly Thistle. All these things are linked in the show notes. And speaking of the Woolly Thistle, this is my progress for the sweater cowl, which I did start, I promise. I hadn't started when I told everyone I was going to cast on like live, and then I super didn't, because I don't like to knit while I'm talking. I don't know, I find it distracting when it's not what I want to do. I gotta have to focus on talking. But this is the Super Simple Summer Sweater by Jorge Locatelli, linked in the show notes, I promise. This is a Wool Dreamers Saona. I've talked about this a couple times, both on the Woolly Thistle Shopcast and also on my channel, so you can go take a look at that. But it is linked, a link to this yarn, which is half wool, half cotton. I am modifying this. I think the initial gauge, well, this originally was knitted in Rosa Pomar Mungo, Rich Rosario Rosa Pomar Mungo, which is half cotton and half wool. This is also half cotton and half wool. It's just a lot thinner. Like, it's fingering weight yarn instead of worsted weight yarn. So I am knitting a size up. I am knitting it at a pretty loose gauge, like 20 stitches over 4 inches or 19 stitches over 4 inches ish, which is like definitely going to still give me, like, it's not like the original gauge is like 17 and a half stitches and 4 inches, I think, but this is pretty loose, like for fingering weight yarn. So it's still going to be pretty light, airy, quite drapey, I think. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be like nice to have it in like the fall and stuff to like throw on when it's a little chilly at night. There's some chunks in my smoothie. I'm trying to get them out. There we go. The straw is really big, but sometimes if like a mango didn't get crushed up all the way, it gets stuck in the straw. Anyway, I am going to be working on this. I've not really been working on it. This was just like what I did on Friday night last week, when Maggie and I were casting on. Well, she cast on before I did, obviously. Yeah, that's what I did. So tonight I'm going to movies with my friend Brie, and that means that I have to bring vanilla knitting, and I'm going to bring that and work on it. I'm excited. Ooh, did you hear that crack? I've been knitting a lot this week. So yeah, hopefully, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not really in a rush. I'm a fast knitter. I'm also not prize eligible because I work for the Woolly Thistle. but I'm knitting along in spirit. And so maybe if like last year I finished my sweater in like a week, and I was like, don't do that. Like, knit along, show your progress every week with everyone else, like work on other stuff. So don't obsess. What else? Okay, so another sweater whip I have. This is almost done. I really wanted to have this done by the end of the week, and then I got sidetracked, which is pretty normal, and it's not the end of the week yet, so I still could finish. I won't, but I'll get most of the way done, and my deadline for this is not for a few more weeks, so it's okay. This is my Cathedral sweater by Claudia Quintanilla from Knit TO. And this is for my friend Jennifer for her 40th birthday, which is coming up in a month from tomorrow. Wow. Okay, so I have to have it done in like 2.5 weeks so that I can send it to her and I can make it to Canada. If you've never seen this pattern, I will link it in the show notes. It's gorgeous. It's a bottom-up sweater in worsted weight with like this lace and twisted rib yoke, and the lace kind of fans out like this to create these like those twisted stitches kind of like get forced outwards because of the lace pattern, and so it creates this really beautiful like kind of like fan vaulting effect, which is supposed to mimic the look of a cathedral ceiling, I think. And so I would show it to you, but it's not like, well, it's on the needles and I don't want to. Well, you can kind of see like this is a bit of the lace and then there's twisted stitches. But yeah, it's not really to the point where you can see what's going on, but ideally I will have it done for the next time I record next weekend. Oh, well, what's next weekend? Nick and I are going to Philly. So I probably won't record until Monday morning, which means I should have it done. If he drives to Philly, he'd probably drive to Philly. Even if we take my car, he likes to drive. So that's great for me because I like to knit. We are going to Philly to see one of our friends from grad school, Pratikshit. He finished his PhD. He lived in the dorm with us. That's where Nit and I met. We were dorm resident, like moms together. Well, we were graduate RAs together. It just like feels weird to be like, I'm an RA, because I was 25 when I did that job. But we were both grad students, and there were lots of other graduate students there too, and undergrads that we worked with. And Pratikshit was one of our friends in the dorm, and he is moving to Santa Barbara for like postdoc or job or something. I needed to actually ask him, I don't know. But Pratikshit does stand-up comedy and improv, and I don't know if he does stand-up actually. He should do stand-up because he's really funny. But he did improv comedy the whole time we were there, and like became basically a professional improv comedian. And he created his own show about science, which is apparently very funny, and I'm really excited to see it. And so we're having like a reunion from the dorm with I don't actually know how many other like staff members are going, but like the house dean is going, and like this professor and his wife who used to live there, and then like the woman who used to run the dorm. She's our age, but her name is Lainey. She was like the coordinator of the dorm. She didn't actually live there. We're all going to like to see him, and I'm really excited. So we'll be there next Friday and Saturday. But yeah, that's fun. So maybe I'll finish the sweater. And the annoying thing about the sweater is that they didn't have 8 skeins of the same dye lot when we went to Knit. Jennifer and I went to Knit in Toronto, and she bought this yarn and gave it to me so that I could knit the sweater. And they didn't have 8 skeins of the same dye lot, so I've been alternating skeins, which has been a little bit frustrating, but not too bad. So I've been helical knitting. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. I was doing helical or helix knitting just to alternate skeins so that you don't see like a giant chunk of one dye lot that's different. And if I look at the skeins next to each other, I can tell the difference in dye lot. Like you could definitely tell. If I didn't alternate skeins, it would be blatantly obvious that the skeins were not from the same dye lot. So I am alternating, and I thought that in the yoke I had 2 of the same. Like I'd done my planning so that I had 2 of the same dye lot, and then I looked at them and they were not the same dye lot, and I was like, oh. So that was my own fault for not being very detailed in how I was. Oh, there's a moth. Oh, she's gonna die. Oh, you are so gonna die. Don't even think about it. We don't really have a huge moth problem, but when we only have like tiny moths, but sometimes I see them and I'm like, don't you dare even think about it. So anyway, those are my 2 sweaters right now that are on the needles. And next, I try to have like one kind of complicated sweater on the needles. Right now it's the Cathedral jumper. So when I finish that, which is almost done, and I'm at the complicated part right now, which is good, And I just finished the Set a Stall cardigan. So next I'm gonna go back to my Long Road hoodie, which I was working on like, I don't know, starting in like January. I think I started in January. That is a sweater that I'm making. It's a big cardigan from the book Contrasts by Meiju KP, published by Lina. Beautiful book. Once I get it kind of going again, I'll show you what I have and I'll show you the book and all that stuff. There is, like, I have episodes about it from, I don't know, March, February probably. But it's a big cabled cardigan. There's a pullover version in the book as well. There's an optional hood. You can make it long. So I had a bunch of skeins of Brooklyn Tweed Shelter and Button Jar, which is this really beautiful, like bottle green color with these blue and yellow flecks like heathered in there. So I've knitted the body from like the top down up to like, I don't know, here or so. And I've knitted one sleeve. So I'm gonna knit the second sleeve because I have a couple of skeins that are of a different dye lot. So I'm gonna knit the other sleeve, and that's where I'm doing the skein alternating. And then I'm gonna knit the hood. I still have so many skeins left. Anyway, then I'm gonna knit the hood, and then I'm gonna finish the body with however much yarn I have left until I have like half a skein left, and then I'm gonna do the full button band around the whole thing with including the hood. So, wish me luck. Because it's gonna be a whole time. If I like start to run out and I get really freaked out, I'm like really worried that the hood is gonna take like 3 skeins of yarn, and then I'm only gonna have like 2 to finish the body and do the button band or something. So if that happens, I've just decided I'm gonna get a couple more skeins, and then I'm gonna just alternate those skeins to finish the body, and then I'll have no problem having enough to do the button band. So that's the plan. But yeah, one sleeve is done, so I'm gonna do the next sleeve. Of course, I like did the sleeve thinking, great, I'll just like do the other sleeve right away as soon as I finish the first sleeve, and then I didn't. I emphatically did not. It's been months. I probably did this in like March. So anyway, this is always what happens with me. I'm like, great, I'm gonna get so much done, and then I like, it's not that I lose interest, I just like get interested in other things, and I always come back to it, but it's not like I'm gonna frog it. I've done way too much to frog it, and I'm really excited. What I really want to do is wear it. So, and I'd really like to have it done for Rhinebeck, which is in, I have 6 weeks till Rhinebeck, so it could still happen for sure. But yeah, okay. So I'm also working on socks. My goal for this week, before I kind of got sidetracked by the Flowers of Fort Rose stuff, but also some hand spun projects that I'm not sharing with anyone, which is crazy, but I'm just trying to like keep things to myself until I decide what to do with my hand spun designs. Anyway, well, my friends all know about them because they come over and they see them, and they get sent pictures of them all the time because I have to share them with someone. But yeah, my Lady Catherine socks. This is the other thing I wanted to have done by the end of the weekend. So I'm going to the beach for Labor Day with a bunch of friends, and I will probably be able to finish these up by then, if not sooner. So these are this is the first sock. It's the same pattern as on my Kitty Bennett socks, but it goes all the way around. If you are new to my channel or don't know about my Jane Austen sock project, it's not very like, it hasn't been very like rigorous. Like I haven't really been like releasing patterns, even though I've knitted and designed 12 patterns now. I have one more design to do, and I am going to move on to Jane Austen Men after that. And this is my, I literally stopped in the middle of a round because I was at the doctor's office yesterday and the doctor came in. This is the second one, so I'm almost to the heel. And then I just have to do the foot, which is faster because the bottom's stockinette and not all over lace. But I really like this. Anyway, this is my Lady Catherine de Bourgh pattern. And one of my friends suggested that she thought Lady Catherine's color was like a green velvet couch. And I was like, yeah, she is. So I talked about this a few weeks ago, and I solicited recommendations for Lady Catherine colors, and lots of you responded. Most of you responded like gold and burgundy, like jewel tones. And I was like, that's a good one. So Lady Catherine will have some more samples at some point. Maybe I'll do a speckle. We'll see. I need to finish this round before I finish the sock. But yeah, the Jane Austen, this is my bag from knitting from when I was in Annie, Miss Emma's Socks in Progress. The Jane Austen sock project is still going. I'm just kind of like, I need to like have a deadline on things and like have some release dates for patterns because if you're interested, actually 2 of my patterns are, well, 3 of them are technically out. The Jane Bennett pattern and Kitty Bennett pattern are both on Ravelry, and the Emma Woodhouse pattern is available at the Woolly Thistle. I'll link all those in the show notes. Because the Emma Woodhouse socks was that was the pair I designed for Rambler when the Rambler yarn came out an entire year ago now. That was the first pattern I released. So those will be done. And then I have to finish another Emma Woodhouse sample. And then I don't know what's going to be next. I need to design them. Well, I've designed the Marianne Dashwood socks, but I haven't knit them. That's the only pair I haven't knit yet. So I think I'm going to do that. And then I'll have all 13 done. And then I can kind of think about my other samples. I'm trying to do a hand spun sample in most of them. I'm trying to do a DK sample in most of them. We'll see. But yeah, okay. So last weekend when Maggie was here, we did some yarn dyeing because I don't remember if we talked about that when she was here last week. But I got some yarn. I got some mohair and stuff just to have mohair because I needed it. It was because, well, Monica takes mohair. I give Monica mohair too. I mean, she just takes so many skeins I need to get rid of and pays me for half of them. But like, or her, like just for however many she wants. And then I keep the rest. But Maggie had those skeins that she got in Dublin that were like greenish, the Life in the Long Grass. Again, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, watch last week's episode. And they were like, it's like a really nice like wool silk blend. And they were like kind of like a light green with some speckles. And I'm gonna dye mohair to go with it, but we haven't decided what color yet. Need to kind of have a think about that. So then I got some 75-25 sock yarn. And with just, I have a lot of yarn that like self-striping yarn that I like to hold double with white yarn, and 75-25 is really thin, so that's kind of a good base for that. But I also just want to like try more dyeing techniques, dye some speckles, etc. So Maggie and I tried our hand at speckles because she's really into speckles right now. And when I say tried our hand, it was a very heavy hand. It's hard to know if you've never dyed yarn before how much like a tiny little bit of the dye actually goes when you tap it onto the yarn. So some of it really does look like speckles and some of it was sort of more splotchy. I haven't dyed speckles in a long time, so I'm also kind of out of practice. But we had a good time and this was a fun skein. And then there was like a lot of just like dye residue basically left in the pan. I use for stuff like this for low immersion speckle dye and stuff, I use a burner and aluminum like lasagna pans from Costco. So there was a lot of green, especially dye, like left in the bottom of the sheet pan, basically after I was done with it. And so I just tipped it into a pot and I put a little bit more dye in and I threw another skein in there. And actually these look really fun together. They kind of go. So I might hold these double. I think I might knit my Aunt Elliot socks and hold these double just for a fun DK sample. Because they do go together. They're the same. I mean, obviously this green. I did a little speckles. I did a little bit of green speckling while I was in there, just to like give it some more body. So that was fun. And yeah, there's one more skein that I dyed, but I'm not going to show it yet because I'm going to tell you about why I dyed it. And it's kind of funny. Anyway, so spinning this week, I took a break for a couple days from spinning because my thumb joint was really hurting. I think it was because I was like sitting in Monica's office at the church like last Sunday morning and I was playing the piano. And sometimes when I play the piano, it will irritate my hands when I go back to knitting. So I don't play keyboards very much anymore because of that, which is kind of sad, but I don't have a piano. So probably if I did and I played all the time, my hands would get used to it because Monica plays keyboards, obviously, for her job. She's an organist. She does that and also knits all the time. So like, I'm sure it's possible. It's just like, maybe not the, for me right now, I think I would need to figure out some kind of things to do with my hands properly. But I started spinning a burgundy 3-ply last weekend. So this is the first bobbin. I've spun 2 bobbins. I'm on the 3rd bobbin. I wasn't planning to do a 3-ply initially, but then the singles were so thin that I was like, you know what, let's do a 3-ply. It'll be fun. I don't do 3-plies very often and I like them. again, spinning on my electric eel wheel. If you're wondering what that is, it's linked in the show notes. If you're looking to get into spinning and you either have a tighter budget, because spinning wheels are really expensive, or small space, or both, I would definitely recommend the electric eel. It is inexpensive, and it's really a lot easier to learn to spin on an electric wheel. It's kind of like the difference between learning on a manual and automatic car. Like a manual car is more like learning on a spinning wheel, and an automatic car is more like learning on an electric wheel, because there's just so much that just doesn't change. Like you don't have to change. It's actually really similar, because like you have to treadle, which means that you kind of have to treadle in a steady way to get the twist even. Whereas if you have an electric wheel, you just set it and go. Like you set it and forget it, and it's like the car does the shifting automatically. It's the same kind of thing. So I like the electric wheel. I am gonna tie a new drive band on Thelma, my wheel. It's just a shacked matchless. I have a 1988 shacked matchless, which is older than me. So this is the piece of top bump of fiber. I said last weekend, I said something about a bump of fiber, and Maggie laughed and said, like a drug bump? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, that's an apt thing to say. So yeah, like a drug bump, like a bump of fiber. People call this different stuff. You could call this combed top. You could call it, this is not roving, it's combed top, but a piece of fiber, a bump of fiber. Some people call it a braid. This isn't actually braided. I don't think people should call them braids, because they're like, you can braid it, like to save space. You just make basically a single crochet chain like this to braid, quote unquote, braid the fiber, so it looks like a braid. But that's not what it is. But yeah, you can braid it like that. But anyway, this is merino, 100% merino yarn from John Arbon. They call it top, viola top. And it says Falklands, 100% organically farmed Falklands merino. I don't know if they pronounce it viola or viola. As a viola player, I would naturally say viola, but also my parents teach Shakespeare, and there is a character in Twelfth Night named Viola. So, yeah, this is from John Arbon. They don't make this as a yarn anymore. They discontinued it, but they still have the top. For now, they're eventually gonna not have Falklands merino anymore, I think, maybe. I don't know if that's true. They're changing the blends of like Harvest Hues and Knit by Numbers, because those had like a lot of merino in them, and they're changing the blends so that they're like using half of that amount as BFL from the UK, so there's just fewer miles on their wool. But I think they're still getting their merino from the Falklands. I'm not sure, but regardless, they're gonna keep making this until they can't make it anymore. So you can still get it as of now. You can tell they always say it's 100 grams, but then I always weigh it, and it's always more. I've never had anything less than 100 grams from John Arbon, but often it's more. This week, John Arbon, this is a mill in Devon, England, by the way, in case you've never heard of John Arbon. And they do make yarn as well as top. The top is like vastly less expensive. If you're a spinner, it's just like way more economical to get. Obviously you have to spin your own, but it's a lot more economical. But like they had a box, like boxes of broken tops, which is just like when they have a like top that's not quite 100 grams, and they have a box and it's like 5 kilograms of it. And it's like 250 pounds, which is massively discounted, from normal. And I really wanted it, but I was like, I do not need 5 kilograms of combed top. I have so much fiber. So I was like, okay, Emma, challenge, spin down your fiber stash, and then next time they have them, not the next time, in like 3 times, because they have them like every 6 months, like three iterations from now, you'll have spun down all your combed top that's dyed, and you can get one of those. Or like when I have space, I don't know, when I can prove to myself that I'll really use it. So anyway, I'm working on the 3rd bobbin of this, and then I'm gonna apply it, and I'm excited. Hopefully that's soon. But I think I'm also gonna get the wheel out and maybe do a combo spin on Thelma, just to kind of get going on that again, because I do really like spinning at the wheel. Okay, one more thing. I'm doing a good job. I feel like this is like 39 minutes and I have one more thing to talk about. I feel like this is just like so me. When I was in grad school and I taught music history, my class was 50 minutes long, and I taught a bunch of semesters in a row, the same class, 50-minute sessions for the whole semester. And my tiny desk knitting has gotten like, it's basically fallen into like 48 to 50 minutes every time I record. And I'm like, my body just knows 50 minutes. It wants to talk for 50 minutes. It knows it so well. Anyway, so I have 10 more minutes to talk about this next thing. Okay, so at Maryland Sheep and Wool, I went with a bunch of friends like Monica and Nitin and my friend Sarah. We all went to Sheep and Wool together and we had a super good time. And one of my friends, Molly, I play the recorder with Molly. She works at UMBC with me. She teaches Latin and Greek and like medieval history and stuff. And I've talked about this before, I think, but Molly and I decided to buy a fleece because she has combs and stuff and hackles and she can process this fleece. So we bought a fleece, she washed it and combed it and processed it, which was really nice of her. And now I am dyeing it. And the fleece is from a sheep named Archie. Molly already called Archie's farmer and reserved Archie's fleece for next year for us too, which is very exciting. And I think he's a CVM Romney, like crossbreed. I think he's CVM, but I'm not 100% positive. He was white. Regardless, Molly gave me a big box of Archie last Saturday when we saw each other, and half of it is for me to dye for myself or keep whatever, and half of it is for me to dye for her. And I haven't done hers yet, but I've done all mine. So I'm going to show you a bunch of it. So I dyed, she gave me some Archie like, I don't know, in May after we got it, like a week after we got the fleece, or 2 weeks after we got the fleece. And she, I kept some of it white and I dyed some of it teal. And I haven't spun the teal stuff yet. I haven't spun any of the dyed fleece, and I should have brought that to show the skein of the white yarn I bought. It's super puffy and super lovely, and it's like a fingering weight. But I decided I was gonna dye, initially I was gonna dye like 250 grams of Archie to be like one giant amount of combo spin, not combo spin, barber pole spin. Then the colors I dyed it, especially because I already had the teal, I realized it's now in like 2 families. So the teal that I already had is gonna go in a skein with this brown. This looks really different from this because I attenuated this, because it does get a little, I mean, there's so much lanolin in it. I would love it to like hear from people if they have experience dyeing like less processed fleece or fleece to process yourself. Like, what do you find is the difference? Because this really seemed to felt a lot more easily, but like I can attenuate it. It's just that like when I dye more processed fiber, even if it's just like a bag of roving, it tends to not felt as much. But it's not like unspinnable feltedness. It's just kind of like needs a bit of TLC here. Like I just need to kind of attenuate and pull it apart, like pre-draft it basically. Maybe it's because Molly like pulls it through a diz. I don't know when she preps it. I don't know, but if you've got ideas, I would love to hear them, because I don't process my own fiber. I just spin it from what Molly does. And so people here are probably more knowledgeable than I am about this. So this is gonna go with the teal. It smells good because I washed it with Jasmine Wool Wash. And then this avocado, like a very light kind of, the dye color is called avocado. That's why I say avocado. It's like a very like lightish kind of, it's like this color, the other fleece. So teal, and then the avocado, and then the brown is gonna be one skein. And then the other is gonna be this deep purple, which I love. It all smells like jasmine because I wash everything with Jasmine Wool Wash. This didn't felt as much as the brown one. Again, it probably depends on how long you keep it in there, how much you agitate the water, all that stuff. And then I've got this pink, well, you can see the blue as well. And then the blue. So it's kind of like the blue is kind of purplish too. It's like a purplish, pinky. These three basically will go together. So this will be like a kind of wild electric skein. I'm excited. I'm really excited for these 2 skeins. And I'm just gonna do some barber pulling and just make something nice with them. I'm really excited to start spinning this up. So I'm not sure when I'm gonna get to that. I am gonna spin, maybe I'll spin it on the wheel. But I feel like the amount of TLC this needs because of the attenuating and stuff, maybe I'll spin it. I'll end up spinning it on the e-spinner. But I need to start, my mom, I'm doing a sweater spin of Devonia for my mom that she bought the fiber for. And it's a lot. I don't know if I want to start it like now and just kind of get it done. It's like a 400 gram spin, or if I want to like I don't want to do some of it now and some of it later because I'm afraid my, my like technique would change enough that it would change the, thickness of the singles and that kind of thing. So I would like to do it kind of all at once, but I'm not sure I'm ready yet. She did say no hurry, so maybe I'll wait a little bit. That might be good because I really want to get to spinning some Archie. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. This is just like, it's really special. Like Molly and I got this fleece together. We selected it after it was a long selection process. We walked around that fleece show for like an hour, and then like we wanted one, but then someone grabbed it because we hadn't picked it up and thought about it, which was silly. But we did find Archie, and it was really exciting, and just like we met Archie's farmer. She was there, and it's just like a really nice time, and it was a special thing that we're kind of doing this together. And anyway, maybe I'll have Molly on the channel at some point. She's very cool, and so I'm gonna dye hers. We were having an event with our other recorder friends last Saturday, and we watched a movie. That's what we do together. We watch movies. It's a like an intergenerational female friendship group. So like I'm the youngest, and then there's Molly and Lindsay who are like 10 years older than me, and then Carolyn and Gina who are close to my mom's age, but they're just like most of them are professors. We just have so much fun together. I really, really like having intergenerational friendships. I find them like really wonderful, and I don't know, just lovely. It just they feel right to me. It's always like you get a lot of wisdom and perspective from people who are older or younger than you. And it's just like a lovely thing. So anyway, we were watching a movie, and Molly kept being like, oh, that's a nice color. Can you dye some Archie that color for me? And I was like, yeah. So I know she wants some teal, and I know she wants some like kind of like cayenne oxblood red. The movie we watched was Tous les matins du monde, all the mornings of the world. It's a movie about a gamba player, which is like very typical for an early music group consort. Our name is A Consorted Effort, which is really funny if you know what a consort is. A consort is a group of instruments that are all like the same instrument but different sizes. It's like a word from like the Renaissance Baroque era. So this deep purple, this is one other skein I dyed, and this deep purple was because there was too much dye in the pot, and this fiber could not soak up all of it. So I just threw a sock skein in without soaking it. You can only do this with superwash yarn, but you can do it with superwash yarn. If you don't soak it, it'll end up being really tonal like this because it won't absorb the dye in a cohesive way. And the reason you can't do this with regular yarn is because it would felt. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just thought Jordan was coming into the kitchen, but she was actually just doing laundry, but I needed to move my laundry so that she could do her laundry. So that's fun. Anyway. I just assume like no one will be alive on a Saturday, but it's like almost 11 o'clock in the morning, so I am very incorrect about that frequently. Okay, what was I talking about? I was talking about how you can't throw this into the water unless it's superwash yarn because the yarn was hot, the water was hot. So you could throw any yarn, non-superwash yarn, into the dye pot as dry. That's fine. The dryness doesn't matter. It just means it's gonna be more streaky. Because what makes it felt is change in heat drastically or agitation. And agitation usually. So like superwash yarn, if I throw this into it's not hot, it's at room temperature, obviously it's just in the air, and I throw it into water that's hot, like close to boiling, it's not gonna shock it because it's superwash treated, so the scales are basically stripped off or like smoothed out so that it doesn't felt. That's the point. That's what superwash treatment is. So this won't felt if you throw superwash yarn into the water to soak up dye. Or you can just wait until it cools, take the fiber out of the water to rinse, and then use that water, which is now cooled off, and put more fiber in it or put yarn in it or whatever, and you do it again, like dye it, like heat it up, and then that yarn or fiber will absorb the dye. There will be some acid in that water, so it might not absorb the dye in a super even way, because if the acid is in the water at the beginning of the dye process, it doesn't let the yarn absorb dye as evenly. It's best to put the acid in at the simmer point. Just like let the yarn soak up the dye kind of evenly at first, and then put the mordant in, which is the acid, is why we call it acid dye. It's what sticks the dye to the yarn. So that was a lot of information for people who probably don't dye yarn. That might be too much, so sorry about that. But yeah, I'm gonna dye some more Archie for Molly this week. It does kind of stink up the house a little bit, but it's not too bad. Hannah's also, my roommate's, Hannah is also a fiber artist, so she kind of knows. And Jordan says that she finds the smell nostalgic for last summer when I did a lot of yarn dyeing. Jordan is pretty high tolerance for my crap, which is good. We're good roommates. So anyway, that is all. It's been again, it was a really long week. And I had to go to the doctor yesterday because I've been having some hip flare-ups while running, and I just want to get it checked out by a sports doctor before I sign up for a half marathon. So yeah, I've sort of gone back to running. I've been running on and off since I was about 15. Of an extended family full of runners, like long distance runners, very accomplished. My aunt runs lots of marathons, and one of her sons is also like a big runner. And then on my dad's side, one of his brothers was like the fastest 5K runner in New Mexico when he was in high school. He could run like a 15-minute 5K or something crazy. So anyway, family of runners. I like to run a lot. I do. But again, the hip flare up has just been like a little scary, and I just want to make sure that it doesn't like mean I can't run a long distance like a half marathon. So yeah, but it goes away. I don't know if anyone here is a runner and wants to weigh in on this, or a doctor, but it will like flare up and it'll hurt for like a day or two, and I'll notice it if I'm walking around. I'm like, oh, that's kind of sore. And obviously ibuprofen helps, but then like 2 days later it's gone. And even if I run on it, 2 days it's gone. So I don't know if it's like some kind of type of arthritis or whatever, but regardless, I'm gonna go see a sports doctor and just have them check it out. I had a lot of problems with tightness across my upper back. This was about 10 years ago from running when I was an undergrad. It was actually so painful that the physio that I was seeing thought my back had, like, my spine might have a crack in it because it hurt at a really specific part. So they scanned my whole skeletal system. Didn't find anything. Luckily, didn't have like a stress fracture or anything. So hopefully whatever this is pretty mild. But yeah, I have started running in like proper shoes for the first time in my whole life, and it has transformed my everything. So, but yeah, I didn't go to park run this morning because I was just like, yeah, it's been a long week. And I did run yesterday, and I was not planning on running very long yesterday, but then I ended up running like a full 5K. So yeah, we'll see. Anyway, I'm trying to kind of build my mileage a little bit more so that I can run this half, next spring or something. We will see. As of now, I am gonna go knit, and I'm kind of just like chill this weekend because it's been such a crazy week. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, that's all. So thank you for watching. This has been Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Bye.